well, you're done. I was a teenage, like early teens at this point. And he's like, oh, because you stopped having fun. What I have is Unbounded. And I came up with that. It's kind of like, I don't really love being told what to do. About this a lot. It can be lonely. And I'm very grateful that my husband and I have each other to run these together. You got to keep going. Like you just have to, there are days that are just so hard, or like bad news comes and you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving.
Did you feel any loss at that point, or what was your feeling when that decision came and then you were on to your next chapter?
Everyone, do me a quick favor and double check that you are a follower or subscriber wherever you listen to the show. I'd be deeply appreciative. It's the best way to ensure you never miss one of these unconversations. Plus, it's the simplest and easiest way to help us keep all the moving parts of our show going. You all are on this journey with us, and I want to personally thank you.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Unconversations podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alison, and today I am just so thrilled and excited to welcome Carina Hamel. She is the co-founder of Bivo. Carina, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm just so grateful for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to have a chat.
Well, I'm even more excited because we're going to talk about this very cool bottle. And this is a bottle that I use. I'm an avid cyclist, as you know, and I met one of your dear representatives at the Dallas bike ride in May, but I carry this around with me all the time. And this bottle also has a special meaning to me because one of your artists that you collaborate with, Lisa Condon, actually created this bottle. So it means the world to me. So I cannot wait for us to get into, because the technology and how you and your husband came up with Bivo is amazing. It's really amazing. And there's a lot of thought and technology that goes into your product. So I'm really looking forward to get into that more as we get through the podcast.
Very cool.
So before we get started and we get to learn more about you in just a moment, I like to start out each podcast with a segment that I call the Unword Effect. And this is where I ask each of my amazing guests to think of 3 words with the prefix of "un" that has influenced moments in their professional path, their personal growth, and as well as their evolution in their leadership. And what is really going to be unique about yours, Carina, is because you are a retired competitive Nordic skier. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking so forward to us getting into your athletic journey and how that inspired you and your husband, Robbie, to co-found Bivo. Yeah. So let's get started first with how you came up with your unwords, because when we first met, you actually really were like, this is kind of cool. Yeah, you're like, I haven't really been asked on podcasts, and you've been in articles have been written about you and your husband. And so I was more excited that I came in with a different twist for our podcast. So I would love for you to kind of talk about how you sort of came up with your words, and then we'll go into those individually and get to know you a bit better.
Yeah. It's funny. So back before I started Bivo with my husband, we had a footwear design and development agency where we helped brands anywhere from creative direction through to production. And when our daughter was born, I was having a hard time coming back to work because I just want to spend time with her. And so we actually hired a leadership coach, and he has worked with us quite a bit on our personalities. And it's been interesting to see how, like, when my husband and we ran the footwear agency together for 10 years, and then we now run Bivo together. And when we first met, I thought we were exactly the same. Like, we loved all the same things, but then when you actually dig into personality, we are like literally the exact opposite, which is super helpful in so many ways. And it has also been very helpful to analyze our personalities so that we can better work together. So I definitely tapped into some of that work that we've done with this leadership coach I was with for 5 years or so. But it was helpful to look back at, what came out of those conversations, and also just like look back through my childhood and into when I was ski racing and now into my professional world. So I can get started with the words if is that good?
Let me ask you one question,
Yeah.
because I do executive coaching work, and
Mhm.
have been doing this work for over 30 years. And
Yeah.
I love hearing leaders talk about, for me, coaching is like, through my competitive journey, I wanted to have the best coaches I possibly could around
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
What was that sort of conversation, if you don't mind me sharing, between you and your husband? Or was this your idea, his idea? Was this a collective idea of like, hey, or was there a problem that we felt? Because some people
Mhm.
think, with coaching and the way it's sort of perceived out there, that there has to be a problem in order to receive that sort of service. What was
Yeah.
that conversation like, if you don't mind sharing, with you and your husband?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because leadership coaching is, I think, one of the most valuable things you can do like to hire in business. To be honest, like it has helped us incredible amounts, not only on working with each other, but also hiring our team and analyzing how people can best fit in with our existing employee base. And so I find it to be incredibly valuable. But I also do recognize that it's a hard thing to justify spending money on, especially as a startup, because you're kind of cash poor for everything.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and so, but with when we started working with our leadership coach, so he actually lived in our neighborhood, so we saw him around the neighborhood quite a bit, and we interacted with him just on the street and in coffee shops, and he always asked us great questions. My husband Robbie, he had worked with him at Icebreaker Merino in Portland, Oregon, for a bit, so he had done some work with him in the past, and we had been trying to figure out, like, I don't know, running a business. I mean, they talk about this a lot. It can be lonely. And I'm very grateful that we have, my husband and I have each other to run these together. But at the same time, you still often find yourself in a situation, you're just like, I have no idea how to do this. Like, and so, and so having someone to ask the hard questions to you is super helpful. And so we always come out of a session with him. Like sometimes we'll go in and we're like, we have no idea what we're going to talk about. And then we come out the other side, we're like, wow, like so much came out. And yeah, so I would say that was kind of our conversation. It was just like, we wanted to grow our business, and we didn't really know how we wanted to grow it. And then we also had the idea of starting a brand. And so I think those two things, we just felt a little bit stuck. And we knew that this person we had interacted with quite a bit, we just on the street, we felt like we could get asked questions and we could come out the other side with some beneficial answers. So we started working with him, and then it's just like, it's fun too. It's like, it's fun. You learn about yourself and you grow.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate you talking about your journey with it, because people ask me, oh, will you do this work, and you do consulting work, and you work with very high level and successful people. I also work with startups, and just really driven people that want to do what you and your husband decided to do and continuously doing.
Yeah.
And it really is, I have my own executive coach,
Mhm.
because I think, one, when I was looking to rebrand my business last year, it was very important for me to really be clear on how I wanted to be different in my space, and how I
Mhm.
wanted to better serve my clients and create my brand, not only through the services that I provide, but also through this avenue of the podcast. So it's really great to sort of have someone open my mind about how I can be better.
Yeah.
And sometimes I myself, who've been in this field for a long time, I realize I've been my own obstacle at times.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need to just get out of my own way. So thank you for sharing your experience and how that's been really important for you and your husband. So yeah, let's dive into your first unword.
Okay. Yeah. So the first one I have is unbounded. And I came up with that. It's kind of funny. I don't really love being told what to do. And I, but I also will take feedback for sure. But, I definitely am in it. I can't be put into a box, because if I do, I get stuck in day-to-day stuff and I need to be out and discovering new things on my own. And so, yeah, that was my first word.
What with that word unbounded, what point in your life did that word sort of pop in the back of your head? Was there a certain earlier experience, or was this the experience in creating Bivo?
Yeah, I think it came out actually when I first started my footwear design agency. So I had been working at the parent company of Keen Footwear, and I had noticed that my job there was helping find factories for new concepts for their inline program. And so I was traveling around the world and establishing relationships with a variety of factories. And I noticed that there was a ton of brands that were trying to start, but then like Kickstarter was really popular, and you didn't even have to have a prototype to be on Kickstarter at that time. So you could see a lot of people had really awesome ideas, but then when it came to designing and developing the product, it actually became a challenge for them. So the relationship with the factory was always the one that felt like it was kind of missing. And so I left Keen and I wanted to start my own agency. And I had I love networking. Like you can put me with a coffee and another person any day, and I'd be happy to chat all day long. I love it. And so I would sit and meet with a lot of people, and I probably met with like 30 to 40 different industry folks. And I think only 2 thought that what I was wanting to do would actually work. But I really set my mind to it, and I kind of like tuned all out those negatives. And so I think that was the first time I really recognized, like, okay, if I have an idea, I can't be told it's not right. I have to just try it for myself.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. Especially when I started this podcast a year ago. And people, of course, are like, "Oh yeah, you should totally start a podcast." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great." And then I'm like, "Okay, great. No one else is doing a podcast, right? Why don't I jump into this?" And then I decided to do it. And then the next question is, "Oh, well, do you know who's going to come on your podcast?" You're like, what's in it for them? And I'm like, wait, what happened to yeah, you should totally do a podcast. And
Yeah.
now you're trying to bring me down, and like, who's going to come on the podcast? Which that is one of the most wonderful things I am not having a problem with, which is so wonderfully amazing. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm like, well, I'm going to try this. So tuning out that noise is really something, that I really try to impose on myself and also my clients, because how do we really know if something's really truly going to work or not, unless we really try it? And it could be absolutely amazing. So I can definitely relate to your unbounded word for sure. What was your second one?
Unrelenting. So this one came probably from my Nordic ski, like it was ingrained in me early on from my Nordic ski days. So I started Nordic skiing when I was 2 years old, and then I really started racing. I mean, I started racing at 5 or 6. But then, when I became a teenager was really when I got super excited about the sport. But it's a really grueling endurance sport, and you have to work really hard and train a lot and put yourself through some pretty, hard races and training and testing. And so that was one that was ingrained in me from a kid. And then moving into my later career of footwear development, now Bivo, just like, you got to keep going. Like you just have to, there are days that are just so hard, or like bad news comes, and you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving.
Yeah. I can totally, one of the second reasons of many that I was so excited to have you on the podcast is my parents had us in skis when we were very young.
Nice.
And so my sister and I became skiers, and my brother decided to be the outlier and got into snowboarding. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely did not ski to the level that you're talking about. But I mean, it's a very tough endurance sport, and does definitely take a pounding to the body. So. Yeah, for sure. And your third one, you and I actually shared this one together. Yeah. So I love this one as well.
Yeah, unapologetic. I totally own who I am. I can, make fun, especially again, going back to that conversation with our leadership coach about who my husband is and who I am. We kind of can make fun of each other about who our personalities are, which is always fun, but also like recognizing them as strengths and not apologizing for them is important. Like, and actually recognizing each other's is awesome, because he can help me push myself in a way that, like, okay, I have to keep going in the direction that makes sense for me. And I do the same for him. So yeah, I would say that's a big one for me. And I think another one, like, just from when I was younger, like peer pressure. I didn't really ever succumb to peer pressure. I wasn't that kind of person. And so I just always was, myself. I think that I remember I actually recently found a photo I went to a ski academy in Vermont and high school. And one of the photos was, they nicknamed every kid, and mine was Carina go to bed at 8 Hamel, because I loved to go to sleep. Like, I was always a sleeper. I needed my rest, but like, I wasn't the kid that was like, oh, I'll just stay up late because everybody else is. I was always like, that was what I was known for. So yeah, I think that also came from a very young age.
Now, when you hit the pillow, how long does it normally take you to go to sleep?
Right now, anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd probably say, yeah, my wife is pretty jealous, because no matter if I have a tough day, or she's like, it is so amazing that you could literally hit the pillow, and within minutes, I mean, you're like out.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I've always been a sleeper, like always loved sleep. And both of our kids are terrible sleepers. So it's just like crushes me.
I don't know if it came because I knew that I was going to have to get up early when I was a competitive swimmer.
Yeah.
Or if I had to go train for running, the hours are always so early that I was really excited to just be able to go to bed at like 8 o'clock. So I wish someone gave me that nickname. That would have been awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking about your unwords. I think they are fantastic. I get really excited when I get to learn more about my speakers, not only from a professional level, but a personal level. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of get in with you. One of the things that you and I talked about, and I don't know if this sort of kind of relates into how we kind of begin your journey. And I definitely want to make sure we save some amazing time to speak about Bivo. But what was it for you? And I think this is so important, because sometimes in business, or as athletes, or even in relationship, we don't know, or we should know, when it's time to move on. And in your situation, in speaking with being a competitive skier, we spoke when we first met, what that journey was like for you, knowing it was time, what that felt like for you. Because I think that's an important moment for people, that they're going to have something in their life where that pivotal moment is going to happen, good, bad, or indifferent. And I would love if you can sort of share a bit about that. And then if that kind of begins to transition into your journey, then that would be amazing.
Okay. Yeah. So my dad was my coach growing up, and we had, he was an athlete himself. He was a big baseball player, then became a canoe racer, and eventually triathlete and Nordic skier. But he his biggest sport was growing up baseball. And so he played through high school and then into college. And I remember asking him out training, we had such great conversations training. Like, Dad, when do you know you're done? I was a teenage, like early teens at this point. And he's like, oh, because you stop having fun. And I was kind of like, okay, whatever. That seems like a dad answer.
That's such a dad thing to say.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, I don't understand what that means. Because I love skiing so much. It was just like, it was the best. And then there were moments throughout my ski career, like, you have a bad year where you're injured, you have some health problems, and it isn't as much fun, right? And you still question, like, okay, am I having fun? Like, what does that look like when you're not having fun? And then, of course, just like my dad said, at some point, I just all of a sudden was like, yeah, I enjoy this, but I'm not having as much fun. And I was actually just more like curious about what else was out there.
Carina, what age were you at this point? When
I
you
was
were
in college. Yeah, I was
Okay.
in college. So I must have been like, I think I was a junior in college, actually. So
Wow.
what is that, 2021?
Yeah.
And so, of course, then I like gave myself permission to not care as much. I mean, I had a full scholarship at UVM. And so and I think actually that was a huge part of the transition from fun to questioning was actually, and I loved skiing in college. Like, I had the best time, but it also was the first time where it felt like a job because I was paying for college through ski racing. Right. So like that was an interesting shift for me and something that actually kind of totally caught me off guard. But then I gave myself permission, I guess, for my senior year to be like, you know what, just have fun. Don't worry about results. And of course, it was my best season I had in a really long time. So it always works out that way. So then I was like, all right, I had another coach at one point who had said to me, my biggest thing is don't let yourself regret retiring too early. So I was like, I should just do this one more year to make sure I want to be done. And so I did.
Great advice.
Yeah,
Great advice. That's a great question to ask yourself. Like, Are you really sure? Because having that regret is a constant record.
Yeah. And I think this coach, he was like, he regretted it. Like, he consistently regretted it. And so it was a great piece of advice. And so I took it and did that 1 year professionally after college. And in that year, even that fall training, I just knew I was done and I was ready to explore what else was out there. So yeah, it was definitely challenging because growing up, I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. She was always like the math. She has her PhD in math. And so she was the math sister, right? And I was the ski sister. And so we were both defined by those two things.
Yeah.
And to then go from I'm the ski sister to like, I don't ski race anymore. What is that? Was a really daunting task. And I do very distinctly remember, like, I could not possibly imagine working 40 hours a week on something and enjoy it. Like, I just could, like, that concept was just not in my head. And so it was tough to make that leap, but I also knew I was ready.
And Carina, you bring up a really interesting point. And this was one of the areas that I had to work really hard with my executive coach on, was because we identify with certain points in our life or certain things that we're doing. So you're the skier and you're like, and that has been ingrained, and that was ingrained with since you were young. You were training to be able to go to school, to be able to, pay for school in that manner. So, I mean, that was your constant drive to do that. And so when that's done, it's like, how do you describe yourself after that? And so for me, yes, there were parts of that through athletics, but also as part of, I was in school. I have 2 master's degrees and a PhD, and I started my first company while I was in school. And then when COVID hit, this is when I had this opportunity to rebrand my company, which is Unconvention. But it was so hard for me to describe myself in a different way than how I've been describing myself for 16 plus years. So I think that's a really great point that you that you bring up, because we bring kind of all this with us, and then when we make a decision and say, okay, we're ready, I feel good about it, then it's like, now what? Did
Yeah.
you feel any loss at that point, or what was your feeling when that decision came and then you were on to your next chapter?
I think I honestly was really ready to move on. So I didn't
Yeah.
feel a loss. And I somehow timed it perfectly because I also didn't have resentment for the sport, which a lot of my friends who retired, they felt resentment towards the sport. And so
Wow.
I definitely timed it well. I don't really know how I did that. I think that was kind of just luck. But no, I didn't feel a sense of loss. I feel like because I knew skiing, because I loved it still so much, would still be part of my life forever. And so I think for me, it was just like, yeah, I guess it was just trying to figure out who I was going to be next. Like, and so it was
Yeah.
redefining who I was essentially. And that was challenging.
Wow. Yeah, I thank you for that, because there's been parts in my in big decisions where especially with COVID, when I sort of felt that this chapter, and there was a part of it that did feel a bit of loss for me, but
Mhm.
then what has come out of it has just been like, I can honestly say, and I've been on other podcasts saying, as awful COVID was, and how it affected so many people in the economy. I mean, it was an awful, awful, awful time.
Yep.
But it did allow me to stop, and it allowed me to have a moment with myself to go, hey, and to ask the hard question. If you didn't have this moment to stop, would you still be doing the kind of work you're
Mhm.
doing, or would that opportunity change for you?
Yeah.
And the work I do, I love, but
Mhm.
being able to work with people more than systems, if you
Yeah.
will, that I'm very happy about that shift for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big defining moment. So it kind of felt a little bit of a loss, just because I was doing it so long. This is how I've
Yeah.
been defined as, but what has come out of it has just been just amazing.
Yeah. I think taking that time, and I know not everybody has the ability to do this, but if you do have the ability to take time and give yourself the space to think and explore, that I did have that. And it was because the season ended and I was living at a ski academy. And so I was helping a little bit at the school. So it was this period of time where I had like 4 months before figuring out a job. What, like, just letting myself explore what could possibly be out there. And I did the same thing after our daughter was born too. Like, I just gave myself time to think about what could come next. And taking time, it's so hard because you just want to you want to figure it out. But like, if you just give yourself a little space, it is huge.
Yeah, I'm an antsy person. I think that comes from being an athlete. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into your quirks of being an athlete and how that transitions into your leadership
Yeah.
style for sure. So give us kind of a brief sort of synopsis on you retired, and then kind of your career, and then let's really kind of jump into how uh, Bivo came to
Yeah.
life. I mean, it
Yeah.
is such. I know just a little bit, and I'm just so invested in you and your company, and obviously a very satisfied customer for sure. So
Yeah. So yeah, let's see, I got introduced to the owner of Keen Footwear, Rory first. I had met him through my uncle, and I told him I was interested in product development. I really did not even know that was a career until I had started digging around a little bit. I always thought, you design a product and then it's made, and there's like this whole section in the middle there. You have to figure out how to make it.
yeah,
But I had worked at an outdoor store in high school in the summers, and I was always interested in actually the shoes. Like, it wasn't like a shoe. I mean, I didn't own a ton of shoes. It was just something I would remember being interested in. And so I met Rory, and I told him that, and he's like, well, if you want to learn product development, you should just move to China. And so he offered me a job over in China working at the factories. So I
Wow.
moved over there for 3 months. And then I think we had 7 different factories in China at the time. And so my first role was a claims collector. So basically anytime there was the factory needed to replace product or give them a credit or something, I was the person working with the factories to get that facilitated. So it was a really cool introduction to footwear development because I learned the factory's perspective first. So when a brand sends over a request, it's often like there's this disconnect, right? Like, well, why is the factory saying no, or why is the factory pushing back on it? And I was on the other side seeing why the factory was pushing back. So it was a really cool way for me to get exposed early to manufacturing. And then I was able to move to Portland from China for Rory. And I worked there for 5 years, just learning a lot about manufacturing.
I bet.
Yeah.
Now, was that mainly because you had this idea that you wanted to develop some type of product?
Yeah,
Eventually.
I was interested in just like what making things. I was just interested in it. And I also honestly, so I lived in high school, or I lived in Norway in high school for a year. And I had been exposed this was when I was 16 years old. So it had been exposed to just a different culture and different way of living. And so I think moving abroad too was super intriguing to me. I was really interested in culture and international business. And so that was a huge part of it too. It was just like, I was excited to go. And, I moved from Vermont. The town I lived in at the time, I think had maybe 2,000 people. And then I moved over to Guangzhou, China, which had like 16 million.
What city in Vermont?
So I was in East Burke, where my ski academy was. And then now we're in Richmond, which is just close to Burlington.
Yeah, I spent some time in Pulteney, Vermont for a bit. So,
nice.
Right? You didn't even think anyone would know that. You're like, what? Like, whoa.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Oh, no, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So what I thought was really interesting was, what was it about hydration? Because I was reading in your bio, what is so important when you're starting a business, right? You're trying to find that gap, right? And so what is that gap? How can, and obviously serving athletes was just, that was like a given, which if it's great for athletes, it's certainly going to be good for mainstream public.
Yeah.
But how did that sort of dawn, in your head of, hey, we have a problem in hydration in athletes?
So my daughter, our daughter was born in 2018. So at this point we had been running our footwear agency for about 8 years. And then when I had our daughter, like I said earlier, I had a hard time coming back to work. I just wanted a new challenge. And so that was actually the first time Robbie and I had started working with, actually this was a different business consultant, where we were like, we got to figure out where we're going. Cause I honestly, it shocked me having her and I'd been working hard my whole life, whether it was like training for ski racing or working in China or whatever.
Yeah.
And so to have her and then be like, wait, I don't want to work. Like, this is super weird. So but I knew I had to work. And I also knew that I would eventually want to work. And so Robbie and I had a lot of conversations. Okay, well, what are we going to do then? Like, because part of, I think, why I was having a hard time coming back to work was I traveled a lot. So I was traveling like sometimes up to 9 times a year to China. And I just didn't want to leave her. Like, I just didn't want to be in that same career path where we just had to grind and grind and grind through travel. And so we started having conversations about what that might look like. And we met with this business consultant and we put down brand. Like, we had always said, we come up with all these ideas for other companies. Maybe we should just come up with an idea for ourselves and run our own brand. So through that process, we had set aside 20% of our time to just think of other, and this goes back to our unbounded word from the very beginning. Like, there was 20% of my time where I could be completely unbounded, right? Like, go to the bookstore, and I used to go to Powell's Books in Portland all the time and just read business books, and then, go and work at a coffee shop, talk to this person. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to anything that I'm like directly trying to explore. It's just open your mind to exploring something, and something cool will happen.
Yeah.
So at the same time, my daughter was going to daycare for the first time, and she was having a really hard time taking a bottle. So I would have to go. I actually started working from home because it was closer to daycare. And every 2 hours I would get a phone call, and they'd be like, you got to come feed your daughter. So I'd go feed her. And then finally she skipped the bottle altogether and took a sippy cup. But she was like named, in 40 years of this daycare, she was named baby number 2 in terms of difficulty scale of like getting to drink out of a bottle. So she was tough. And so we were talking a lot about bottles. So that honestly is like the start of it, was like, we just were talking and testing baby bottles constantly. And one of the big things for us was that we really didn't want to feed her out of plastic. At that point, there was very little research into how bad plastic is for your body. There still is honestly very little. But we felt like if it tastes bad and it smells bad, it can't be good for you. So we were talking about that while we were up skiing on Mount Hood and taking a drink out of our moldy, like literally it had black mold in it.
Yeah.
And we're like, what are we doing? Like, why are we drinking out of plastic when we exercise? Because it was actually the only time that we did that. Like any other time of our lives, we were drinking out of metal or glass. And so we were like, wait a minute, like that's an interesting idea. And so we came home and started researching it, and we couldn't believe it, but there was nothing for cycling. There literally was not a bottle other than plastic that was designed for cycling. And
now,
so,
what was it about cycling specifically? Because was this because your husband cycles? Because you were more focused on skiing.
yeah.
So where did the cycling, like, yeah, we want to do something for cyclists and have something that's going to fit in their cages and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So after skiing, I actually did get into cycling, more road cycling. And then I was also, my parents growing up, we had a ski course on our property in Western Massachusetts. And then we slowly kept getting not very much snow every winter. And so they changed it from a Nordic course to a cyclocross course. So I actually was like heavily exposed to cycling, and a lot of people tried to convince me to race bikes, cyclocross specifically, after I retired from ski racing. But I was really ready to be done competitive, like endurance, anything. And so it was just part of, like, cycling was still a huge part of both me and Robbie. We both, all of our friends rode bikes, whether it was mountain bike or road. Portland's a huge road city, actually.
Huge.
Tons of cycling in Portland. So most of my friends were huge cyclists.
Yeah, my sister's husband, avid cyclist. They lived in Beaverton.
Nice.
And then recently moved for his job, so I know they miss it greatly. But he's a huge, gravel mountain, like, as long as he's on a bike, being able to do something, like he's like all good. So nice. And so I'm pretty addicted to it here in Dallas, and really happy that there's a pretty big cycling community out here. So that makes like a perfect transition then to be able to come up with a bottle that's going to really work for cyclists.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So, you and I kind of were talking a little bit before the podcast. Here you have this great idea, right? You have a daughter that is extremely, extremely important to you, obviously, of course. And now you're like, I'm not sure if I want to work, but you are working. And now you come up with this really awesome idea that, of course, now has to be created. And how are we going to get this off the ground? So, I asked you before, because here people are at this moment too, where, you're a competitive athlete. You and I spoke about, kind of the changes that sort of happen, not only with your body and Where were you in this moment? I wanted to specifically, I wish Robbie was on the podcast as well, but I think this question is so just so important for women to be able to hear from other women.
Mhm.
This was also something now in your mind where, okay, if we're going to now take on this, what was that sort of moment for you? Because now it's not just working. Now it's creating a company, taking care of your family, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
What was that part like for you?
Yeah, well, so we definitely took on way too much. And I would say, so what we were trying to do,
Yeah.
what we were trying to do, we had a team of 7 in Portland, all product developers, specifically in footwear. We also had a team of 3 people in China helping us on the factory floors, just like oversee production and such. So we had a whole host of designers that we worked with in Portland, and brand directors and that kind of thing. So our network in terms of creating a product company was quite solid. We were in Portland still at this time. And we knew after working with this business coach, we knew that we wanted to start our own brand. And so we actually hired an intern from the University of Oregon's sustainability program. And so we brought Peter on, and we tasked him with staying on top of our ideas. Like, we didn't even have the idea for Bivo yet, but we had done things in the past where we tried to come up with something on our own. But naturally, when you have clients, they're paying, right? So like, they take your energy often, and you kind of forget your own projects. You push them to the side a little bit, and it's really easy to forget about. So we kept Peter on, saying, Peter, we think we're going to start something. We don't really know what it's going to be, but you're going to be part of the process. And it was awesome to have him, because he really did help. Very shortly after that, we actually came up with the idea for Bivo. So he didn't have long before he was digging right into how to develop this bottle. And so it took us about 18 months to develop the first bottle before we were ready to place the purchase order. But in that, we had, our daughter, we had COVID hit. So we also moved east. So we had to move our team, or move Robbie and I, and then our daughter, from Portland, Oregon, to live with my parents in Western Massachusetts. And then we had to launch the bottle, all while running this footwear product development agency that was like a total mess because of COVID. So like, supply chain got completely messed up during the COVID. Yeah. So it's like, it was horrible. So we had all these things happening all at one time. And then we decided to have another kid. So
because that was going to lessen the stress.
Yeah. Well, we really wanted 2 kids, and it really wasn't, I mean, knew like it was going to be really hard, but we really wanted, we wanted 2. And so
that's amazing.
We had our second kid in 2021. And then by the time Christmas hit, he was 4 months old, which is the worst for sleep. 4 months is the worst. So we were tired. We have a hard business because of the supply chain. We're growing our Bivo business. And I actually went for a walk in the woods with Nolan on my front, our son Nolan on my front. And I was just thinking, and I emailed my husband, which is funny because we were like together, but I was just like, I had to get all the thoughts out on my phone. And so I emailed him, and I was like, we've got to shut the footwear business down. Like, it has become a time, like, we just cannot do this.
Wow.
And that was hard, because that was honestly, actually, earlier you were asking me if I felt a loss when I stopped ski racing. And that was a harder decision for me than stopping ski racing, was shutting down my footwear business, because I think it was the first time, like, I had started that company, and then my husband joined me about 2 years in. And so I think it just felt like it was it was like it was the second time was going to lose something that was my identity. So that was a challenge. It was very hard for me to let that one go.
Yeah.
But it just also was like way too much. And so over the course of the next 4 months or so, we were able to get all of our staff who still worked for us placed at the companies that we were consulting with, and then, transition all the work over. So we felt really good about the way that we ended that. but it took a while, and yeah, it was a hard decision for sure.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was sensing as you were sort of kind of talking about your sort of, and thank you for sort of kind of bringing back, and the loss doesn't necessarily mean it's tragic, but
Yeah.
there is time, and it was part of your identity, and it was
Yeah.
another company that you started, and there was a moment where you have to, one, how do I balance all of this?
Yeah.
And you said something to me earlier too, you know, um, there's this concept that as women we say we can do it all, and
Mhm.
I think we want to believe that, but at
Yeah.
the same time I think, yes, we can do so many things because I think we're wired that way, and
Yeah.
we're probably even more wired that way because as athletes, and more importantly in your level of being an athlete, you're
Yeah.
always stretched to the boundaries to see
Yeah.
how far you can push yourself.
Yeah.
So to be able to stop and go, hey, we do need to let this go because we really could be on the path to something really amazing with what we're wanting to do with Bivo.
Yeah.
Something did have to take. It doesn't mean that you weren't necessarily going to be great at both,
Yeah.
but I think that was a moment for you and your husband to go, wait, what what direction do we really truly want to go so we can do
Yeah.
it well?
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like, we knew, both of us knew, but we knew that we just couldn't keep doing everything, because then everything would fail. And so we definitely had to pick. And at that point, we had Bivo, I guess, a year in the market, and we were seeing enough validation. We're like, okay, this actually could be something. And we were excited about it. And then, of course, we had our 2 kids, and between, like, we had to pick, and kids are extremely important, of course, to us. But you just like you can't fit it all in. And so, we had to pick our kids, one business, and then a little bit, if we could possibly, for ourselves. So
Well, this is a cool and a fun business, in my opinion.
thanks.
Let's talk about, because this isn't just any water bottle. This
Mhm.
has a lot of thought. I mean, it looks cool. You have a ton of other colors, and we'll make sure everything is in the show description when we launch the podcast. But the technology behind this bottle, and I've tested it in 114-degree weather,
Oh,
and just so you know, I am no sponsor. I don't get any free things, unless something comes my way, I'm down with it. I just want to say that I ride on all hours of the day, and I will, one, health wise, I'm a huge fan. That's most important to me.
yeah.
But also how it keeps my water cold on my very long, and it gets me through my hot days here in Texas, as you
Yeah.
and humid.
Yes.
So,
I don't
but
know how you
yeah,
do it.
please talk, because this is a very unique product, and how what brought you to this path to go with this level of technology.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we came up with the idea, one of the things we knew is, like, we were actually going back to, again, to footwear. Like, at footwear, there was this time where there were a lot of new materials coming out that were much more eco-friendly, foams for the midsole, and different compounds for the rubber, and material selection. It was definitely a time where it was like, okay, you're picking either one that is better in terms of it's easier to manufacture, or is less wasteful to manufacture, but maybe doesn't last as long. So then you have this problem. Okay, then you have to keep purchasing more things, right? And so it was this, like, we couldn't sacrifice performance for this health and sustainability purpose.
Yep.
Like, we knew that if it was going to be adopted, it had to perform as good as or better than plastic. And so we also wanted it to be super simple, because sometimes things can get over engineered. And so like might have to press a button and something opens, and it's just like too many like, gizmos and gadgets essentially. So we wanted,
I just need a drink of water.
exactly. Yeah. And so we wanted it to be very similar to how you're used to drinking out of a bottle on a bike. And so, yeah, we actually had worked with an engineer who used to work at NASA. He was a fluid dynamics engineer. So he was able to come up with a lot of concepts with us. And then we would have to reel it back in a little bit and make it a little more simple. So we came up with something that, you open just like a normal sport bottle and you close it back up and you just tip and pour or you just tip and drink just like you would with a normal bottle. So the technology is all in the lid, and there's actually a straw inside, and it's not for drinking out of, it's for venting air. So when you open the nozzle, it goes to the vent hole, and then the air goes into the bottle, equalizes the pressure inside, and allows the water to come out quickly. And what happens is you actually have a really clean stream of water, no air. There's like no aeration that you get sometimes when you squeeze or if something's like chugging. And so it's just a really pleasant drinking experience.
Yeah. And I was, like I said, I have so many water bottles, I can't even begin to tell you. And then I recycle them. And then when I saw that you guys had a booth, I went over, I was like, oh, well, one, the colors were awesome. And I was like, oh yeah, they're really cool. So I went over and I was like, oh my God. So I literally bought, we bought 2 bottles on the spot, and I used it on the bike ride. It was a 20-mile bike ride the next day. And I was pushy and said, I want to meet the co-founders of this company. And so, hi, Lily. I love, speaking to new businesses and more importantly, in having a dream of a concept, because producing a product, one, to get the idea, two, have it be functional, and then being able to distribute it, and then have the athletes, but the public really enjoy it, and to be able to get all those things, that's like amazing. I mean, that's like really amazing. And so I just really wanted you to, I'm very happy you went through that process. I wanted to ask you, we are going through, there are many businesses that are having an extremely difficult time due to our current administration that are putting pretty hefty tariffs on companies. And it's one thing, the larger companies, maybe they can handle it a little bit better than some of the smaller businesses. What's interesting is I saw you featured in an article where you spoke about that. And the tariffs were just rearing their ugly heads. So I'm even more fascinated to ask you this question now, just because things are really in full force, and they're constantly even whiplashing back and forth with what tariffs are going to happen, not happen. And I wanted to ask you as a small business owner, how is that affecting you? And two, how are you weathering the storm that other small businesses might be able to learn a nugget or two from you? And thirdly, to keep this product in its high quality as you proudly showed us.
Yeah, it's been very challenging. I think actually the thing you brought up, the whiplash, that's honestly been almost the most difficult piece to navigate, because there's so much, our operations manager, Sam, he was probably from April to July, like at least once a week, something changed. And so we had to hold product. Our bottles are made in China. So they're made in this one region outside of Shanghai, where 96% of the world's stainless steel water bottles are manufactured. So it's not even like when we first started looking around for factories, we actually tried to make it in the US. And we had gotten a quote if the company could make it. And this was not for insulated, just for single wall. it was going to be $50 to manufacture it, just to manufacture it. And we sell that same bottle for $39. So it would have been just like impossible. So anyway, we found this great factory. It's actually the world's largest water bottle manufacturer. And so our goods went from, when we first started Bivo, it was 2.5% duty. And by the time, whatever he was calling Liberation Day hit in April, it was up to 154% for our insulated bottles. So it went from, having a great growing business in the US to, I'm not even sure we can sell our bottles in the US. Like it was very drastic, sudden shock. And then it kept changing. So then it was like, okay, we're going to reduce it. And we also have non-insulated and insulated bottles. And so they're classified as two different things. And so they kept switching too. Like one was higher and then the other one went higher and then the other one higher. And it was just like impossible to predict anything. So the whiplash was really challenging. The other piece of it for small businesses and big businesses, to be honest, like cash flow. So basically you have to pay the duty upon arrival in the US, and then you get the goods and then you sell them. So you have to have the cash up front to pay for these tariffs. We had a large shipment delivered 3 days before the tariffs first went up in like February. And the factory had like miscalculated how much could fit on the boat. And so we had one pallet that was waiting to be sent. And for some reason it got sent like a couple months later. So we were waiting for it to arrive. And then of course the tariffs hit in April. So that pallet that we normally would have paid, I think it was like $200 to import, it went up to $3,500 to import.
Wow.
So that's just a small shipment that just like happened to come. But if it had been a big order for us, we wouldn't have been able to do it. And so what we did, and I think this is one of those times, like I was mentioning before, being an endurance athlete definitely is helpful. We just had to keep going. Like we just, like we have to stay calm. We have to trust the process. We have to, do the best we can to figure out other opportunities. So I actually went over to Europe to start exploring warehouses because we could ship product to Europe. We already had 2 reps there who are helping us sell bottles already. And then Robbie went over to China to negotiate with our factory on terms. So we didn't think we could get the price of the goods down, but we thought maybe it would help if we could get better terms with our factory so that we could improve our cash flow. And so we were able to do that. And then we were able to set up a warehouse in Europe. So basically we're diversifying where we sell, making sure all of our eggs aren't in the US basket essentially. And we're just moving forward. So back down to, on average, I think between the two types, we're at like 32% tariff now.
Wow. It's interesting because the tariffs are supposed to have this idea to make things easier for U.S. businesses.
Yeah.
And we're all learning on many different levels that is certainly not the case that is happening.
Right. Yeah.
And so if we can figure out a better system in order to be able to have a more affordable production, I think
Exactly.
we would want to try to do that.
Yeah.
But with that being said, and so, I think your word unbounded in this situation actually really comes full circle again in our conversation that you and Robbie are having to say, hey, I'm not going to let this, as much as I possibly can, one, affect our company, our livelihood, and the people who work for your company, work with you. And 2, you're not going to sacrifice the original part of why you did this, is the quality. And so I think that is a really beautiful testament on how you guys are really trying to weather this whiplash of a storm. So thank you for sharing that with us as well. I wanted to just take a moment or two, if you can hang out for a few more moments. I usually like to give my guests an opportunity to ask me anything before we wrap up. And I definitely want to give you a moment or two just to see if there was anything left that you wanted to make sure to kind of bring home to our audience before we wrap up.
Yeah, no, I don't, I think we covered a lot. I think I guess one question for you, it's so interesting. I think the fact that you have a coach and you're a leadership coach is so interesting. So I guess I kind of would ask you the same question that you asked me in terms of like well, you obviously know the values of having a leadership coach, and how is that to be on the other side when you know the questions that, like, you've studied the questions you should ask, or you've studied the things that you should analyze? How is that to work with somebody?
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's a great question. And I have not been asked this question before, but to me, it's almost like a therapist. I feel for me, I interviewed, yes, I know the process,
Yeah.
but I want someone to get to know me as I want them to want me to get to know them.
Yeah.
Because we all come with our personal stuff and we all come with our business stuff, and it's all together. And so I wanted someone that was going to challenge me. I
Mhm.
wanted someone that was going to push me. So I knew the key areas that if I was going to do this and make the commitment and make the
Mhm.
financial commitment, was I wanted someone that was going to challenge me, my thought process, really make sure that I wasn't just giving answers to just give answers,
Yeah.
and that I was really digging deep myself.
Mhm.
And during that time, I actually got an executive coach. I was seeing a therapist at the time too,
Mhm.
because there were some issues in my personal and professional life that I don't think I fully let go. So that's why I was sort of asking you that loss
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
And so I was going through the therapy part first, which was helping, and which then really brought kind of the whole rebranding of my business even to another higher level that I don't think
Yeah.
I would have thought about until I kind of worked through that.
Yeah.
And so I went to see an executive coach, which was a recommendation from my therapist. And she was like, I think you're really on to really great things. I
Mhm.
think you need to possibly get out of your way a bit. And also, I had a lot of records playing in the back of my head that
Mhm.
I needed to have it stop,
Yeah.
and know how to, when if they started to play again, I knew how to. So what was interesting going through that process is I found an exceptional executive coach who really she pushed me in really great ways, and I was thankful for that. So I don't think all coaches are created equally.
Yeah.
I wanted someone that could really understand my background, and to understand me and my personality. So
Yeah.
I always tell people that you should really interview and make sure that you're working with someone that has understand your values,
Yeah.
your morals, your visions. They may not be the same, but as long as they're doing the work that
Right.
you're hoping to get out of it, I think is really important. So I think it's important for people to look into executive coaches, but not all of them are created equally.
Yeah.
So I did my due diligence and interviewed a few of them, and
Mhm.
finally chose, like, yeah, this is the person I want to work with.
Nice.
Is there anything that you feel that before we wrap up that you would just like to add?
One thing that hasn't come up, I guess, is trusting the process. I think that's something that we can continue to talk about. Me and Robbie, we talk about that a lot. And I think it was something that I took from being an athlete too, is sometimes it can take a long time. And sometimes you can pick the harder route. Like this is definitely the harder route in life, I would say. But then you start seeing things come to fruition and it like all starts to kind of come together. And so I just think that's an important reminder that like sometimes you just got to remember, like you pick a path and you got to go for it and just keep trusting that it's going to work out.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up on that because I absolutely agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Yeah.
This wraps up another episode of the Unconversations podcast. Carina, thank you so much again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This was awesome.